Welcome to another week, another show of Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. There's our buddy. He's back home. Uh, Not really, just for this week. Kenny Smith, former beat writer for the Iowa Hawkeyes and the Des Moines Register and Hawk Central, now doing great things in Alabama. As you saw last spring, Kenny joined me last spring, summer on his way to Alabama. And Kenny joins us today. I am also remote via Zoom out of the office, so wanted to get a chance to sit down with Kenny Smith, but after we talked to Kenny about Kadyn Proctor, Hawkeye football, Bama football. Oh, by the way, Nick Saban no longer there. We'll catch up with Kenny about that. But we're also going to talk with, after the first two segments with Kenny, we'll talk Blueters Bunch, also Hawks men's basketball, and we'll close out the show with our buddy Mike Palm from Circa Sports in Vegas. And Mike, again, got great insights. So Kenny Smith, Kennington Llyod Smith III, as Paul Feinbaum says on ESPN, the best name in media. It is great to see your smiling face back here in Iowa, even though it's via Zoom. Great to see you, my friend. So let's get to it. Kadyn Proctor, I'll just say those two words. Take it away, please.
Yeah, I think with Kadyn, obviously, from my vantage point, I believe he left Iowa to go to Alabama for the chance to obviously play for Nick Saban and play right away because Alabama needed offensive linemen, but also that piece of playing in, an exciting, dynamic offense that can compete for a national championship. And he did all of those things in his freshman year. He started every single game. He played in every single game and was all SEC freshman team. And obviously Alabama won the SEC and went on to the college football playoffs. So from that lens, he was able to accomplish what he wanted to accomplish. But when we got to the Rose Bowl week and we were able to kind of talk to him for the first time, as you know, they don't allow freshmen to speak to the media at Alabama. Right. So when we were talking to him, leading up to the Rose Bowl and after the game, he obviously accomplished what he wanted to, but I think there was a sense of him kind of being very reflective about just kind of the negativity that he received, from certain parts of the fan base throughout the season. And, that's not, native just to Alabama. That can be any fan base. But I think when you consider Alabama's season, it was a different type of year. It wasn't an Alabama team that was great start to finish it and ran the table and received all of this acclaim. It was a team that struggled at the beginning of the year and kind of had to find themselves along the way. And the offensive line was a really big part of that. So, Kadyn did talk a little bit about just kind of like the negativity that he received and kind of how that affected him a bit. And, he said it wasn't to the point where it affected his play, but it was something that he was kind of thinking about. And he had to kind of learn throughout his freshman year of what that was kind of like and how to deal with that. And I just think that at a certain point, he probably did get a little bit homesick. And I think ultimately he would have stayed at Alabama if Nick Saban would have returned, because when the initial window was open after the season, he did not enter the transfer portal. He didn't enter until after Nick Saban retired. And I think that was kind of like the thing that was kind of keeping him there, like, okay, play for Nick Saban. I'm an ascending player. It wasn't a great freshman year statistically, but he did get a lot better as the season went on. And that was a huge reason why Alabama went as far as they did. So ascending player, getting a chance to play for Nick Saban in his second year, I think was a big selling point for him. But when that wasn't on the table, that's kind of when you got maybe I'll think about a return home. So, obviously there's been a lot made about Iowa and his relationship during the season, the sanctions and the tampering. And, we've kind of fleshed all of that in the last few months or whatever. But, there was always, Iowa was in the back of his mind throughout the entire process. I think that was evident in what he was saying in terms of they reached out to me and all of those things. So I think all of those things culminated into him transferring to Iowa, which, for Alabama was a big loss because they did lose their starting left tackle and they're going to, have to find replacements and have a key battle at both tackle positions this spring. And for Iowa, it was a very valuable lesson for fans in terms of recruiting, in that the team that finishes second in recruiting, it's not always a bad thing, because in this era of the transfer portal, you never really know. You keep those relationships, and somebody who didn't choose you initially out of high school, if they enter into the portal, they can choose you a second time. So Iowa maintained that relationship, obviously, and now Kadyn is back home, and I anticipate that he's going to play a big role in their season this year.
Yeah, to say the least. And there it is, viewers. If you think Hawkeye players are the only ones that get ridiculed by fans online, Kenny just laid it out for you. But I do want to follow up with you, as you mentioned, with Tyler Barnes. He had texted, keep your head up. Iowa self-reported to the NCAA. They got a slap on the wrist, no real sanctions for reaching out to Alabama or reaching out to Kadyn while he was still playing for Alabama during the season. A lot of scuttlebutt I saw on social media. Some of the Alabama fans were a little burned off by that. Any more about that, or it was just kind of initial, hey, they need to leave the kid alone, it was tampering, or what are your thoughts, or what was your coverage from that?
Yeah, I think it was more so just like, okay, there's some clear tampering here. What is going to be made of this? And I think that was pretty much the brunt of it. I think, there was just kind of so much happening at that time. Alabama was pretty much getting attacked from all angles once Saban
Yeah,
retired, and that was a really interesting time because the transfer portal wasn't open for anybody else but Alabama. Their players could leave, but they couldn't bring in anybody else because everybody else's window had passed. So it was kind of a little bit of a volatile time, I think, within the program. And then you hear something like that, it can be maybe a bit triggering, but I don't think it was, something that, fans are still thinking about at this moment. Obviously, Alabama is focused on their 2024 roster and their 2024 season, and Kadyn's going to focus in on Iowa, I'm sure. So, that's just kind of, we're going to leave it at that. It's not like Alabama and Iowa cross a lot of paths, on the
right.
football field or on the recruiting trail. So it was just kind of like, I think, a one off. But I do think in that moment it did just kind of rub fans the wrong way. But I think it was just a piece of the whole puzzle of
Yeah.
a lot of schools were circling the wagons trying to get a lot of Alabama players off the roster when Nick Saban retired. And, several teams were successful. Obviously, I believe they lost, about 10 players after Nick Saban's retirement. So I think that's kind of where it's at. And I will say this, though, when we were getting a chance to interview some players, offensive lineman Tyler Booker at Alabama, who's one of the best players on the team, said that he doesn't hold any hard feelings towards Kadyn. He said that him and Kadyn talk 3-4 times a week. So that relationship is still there. So at least from the player side, Kadyn has a pretty close relationship with at least Tyler Booker, and I'm sure, other players on the team. A lot of them just said, players left, we wish them well. But we're gonna focus on what we have going on here. They're gonna focus on what they have going on there. And that's just kind of the way the dust settled.
But folks, don't get uneasy. Kenny Smith is going to come back for a second segment. We're going to talk some basketball with former Hawkeye beat writer for the Des Moines Register and USA Today and Hawk Central. Now with the Athletic, covering Alabama, primarily Alabama football, but other Alabama athletics as well. So Kennington Llyod Smith III, our buddy Kenny Smith. So Kenny, thanks again for agreeing to join us for a second segment. We'll be back with more Hawkeye. I'm Dave O'Hara. Back with more in just a few moments.
To have a strong finish, you need an excellent start. It's true on the track and also in the field. That's why Mershman Seeds works tirelessly to deliver cutting-edge technology year after year. Introducing Starting Line, Mershman Seeds' latest advancement in seed treatment, now providing added protection from white mold and sudden death syndrome all season. Ask for Starting Line seed treatment from Mershman Seeds, your friend in the field.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. There's our buddy Kenny Smith with the Athletic now, covering Alabama sports, but primarily Alabama football. Kenny, formerly with the Des Moines Register, covered the Hawkeyes, was a beat writer there for the Des Moines Register, as I mentioned, USA Today and Hawk Central. Kenny's kind enough to join us, and we talked Kadyn Proctor in the previous segment, Hawkeye football, Alabama football. Let's talk some basketball, Kenny. Bluter's Bunch. You got a chance to cover them for the couple of years you were here in Iowa. Now you get a national landscape view from Alabama. What are you seeing? What are you thinking? What a game that was on Sunday on national TV, CBS, with the Hawkeye women winning against Nebraska, breaking that tiebreaker, having 2 games over 3 now against Alabama or against Nebraska. What are your thoughts on Caitlin Clark and the Hawkeye women nationally?
Yeah, I think, to start with Lisa Bluter, I don't have the same foundational knowledge of all of her coaching jobs, but this has to be near the top, I would imagine. I don't think people understand what, or maybe they do understand it's not being talked about enough. The job that she's done from this perspective, to lose Monica Sonano and to lose McKenna Warnock and to not take in anybody from the transfer portal, who they have on the team this year is who they had last year. And they're back at this same spot, even ascended past the spot where they were last year as a number 1 seed. The development of Hannah Stokey has been incredible from a player who showed flashes last year, but you could tell once they got into the final for the national championship, she wasn't as confident as a player. That confidence is through the roof right now, and they don't win that Big Ten championship game without her. Sydney Affolter has been a revelation this year in terms of what she's been able to bring. Molly Davis has taken a huge step forward. And obviously, Caitlin Clark is continuing to do what she's done. Kate Martin as well. You can't leave her out. So I just think the job that Lisa Bluter has done, Jan Jensen, Raina Harmon, the entire staff, and how they've developed this team deserves its credit in its own. I think when you look at the Nebraska game, championship DNA won that game. When you're watching it, it really wasn't any reason why Iowa should have won the game. I mean, they were outplayed throughout the game, but at the end, it was just Caitlin Clark, Gabby Marshall, Hannah Stokey, Kate Martin, the ones who have been through the wars, the ones who know what it's like to play at that high level, just locked in, and we're not going to be denied. And that's kind of where making a run at a national championship last year plays dividends in the next year, where they just kind of know how to play and operate in these big games. So it was just pretty amazing to watch. I think you look at this Iowa team, and I don't think the formula really changed too much from last year. It's a team that's going to need Caitlin Clark to play at her best, but they're going to need all the members of the supporting cast to play at a high level to get back to the Final Four, because I believe that this road to the Final Four is going to be a lot more treacherous than it was last year. You look at women's college basketball, the talent distribution across all the top teams is pretty even. I mean, you're looking at a team like South Carolina going, head to head with a Tennessee who's probably going to be like an 8-9 seed in the tournament. They got taken to the brink. Obviously, LSU is still going to be around. USC, Stanford, UConn is going to be floating out there in the ether as, not a top seed as they're used to, but they're going to be just as dangerous as anybody else. So it's going to be a tougher road, I think, this year. But securing that number one seed in the easiest possible path to getting to the Final Four was absolutely huge for this program. So I'm looking forward to watching them in the tournament, and I'm definitely hoping that it's another Final Four run. And Caitlin's last year, and Kate Martin's last year, and Gabby Marshall and the other seniors on the team, I hope that they can make it back to that same stage. As somebody who lived in Iowa, but not being within like the Iowa Midwestern bubble, because, and I'm not saying that in a disparaging way, but when you're in the Midwest, it's like, in your mind, it's like, obviously everybody knows who Caitlin Clark is just because that's the environment. But as somebody who lives in the South and grew up with people and know people who do not watch college basketball, period, much less women's college basketball, I had friends who blocked out that entire Sunday and watched Iowa. Then they watched LSU. Then they watched, USC and Stanford. And it was, conversations throughout the day and group messages and people calling me. And I'm seeing it on my timeline of people who don't normally engage in these type of conversations, watching it because of the star power and the storylines and everything that we're kind of talking about. That's what it takes to grow the women's game. So anything that can, angle it in a way to where we can get these matches again when the stakes are higher, I think would be great for the NCAA tournament.
You have hit upon so many key points, and just for the interest of time, I'll short circuit that and move forward. But you nailed it perfectly. There are people now nationally who are talking about, I got to familiarize myself with the men's game and the men's players, because you nailed it. But let's transition and talk about men's college basketball, and March Madness is getting ready for Selection Sunday as well in 5 days. Let's you and I talk about this as we record this on Tuesday afternoon, March 12th. Give me some of your takeaways about Fran's guys if they don't make March Madness, and if they go to the NIT, I would think most certainly, or the CBI or another tournament. Give me some of your thoughts from an outsider's perspective to Fran and his guys, Hawkeye men's basketball, please, Kenny.
Yeah, I think this is just my personal thought on the team. Even last year going into it, when I was still up in Iowa, it didn't feel like a tournament team to me. When you just look at what Iowa's had and kind of what their identity has been in the last few years, especially when I was covering them, was an A-level All-American pacing the team and a really strong supporting cast. When we looked at this team, with all due respect to the Peyton Stanfords and the Tony Perkins, there wasn't a standout All-American on the roster. And I know the Big Ten honors came out today, and they had landed a couple of Big Ten guys on there, and Owen Freeman was freshman of the year, but there just wasn't that. I didn't see that alpha male that was going to kind of like take them to that level. And with that being said, the roster, I think Fran has done about as good a job as you can with this team. The fact that they're even in the NCAA tournament conversation is pretty much what I expected out of the team. You have to be excited about the future of Harding and Freeman and Sanford and Dembele, and all those guys have been able to play and show some things. So, I'm looking at it a little bit more half full, even if they don't make the tournament. I don't think it's particularly fair to Fran and the team to have pre-season expectations of, okay, this is probably not a tournament team, and then when they're not a tournament team, presumably, let's say they don't make the tournament, to say, oh, this season was a failure or whatever. I think it's kind of like, okay, we knew this wasn't going to be the same team as years past. Let's look at, the positives of what it is and what this team could be in the future, because Tony Perkins could come back. Peyton Sanford could come back. And if they're back with this young core and I hope that the Swarm does what they can to give Fran the necessary resource to go out and actually get a player, an impact player out of the portal, because that's really what's been holding the program back the last few years, is just not having, the support and the resources to go out and get a piece that can complement the roster that can kind of take them to that next level.
I thought you nailed that perfectly. And the future is very bright, as you mentioned, with some of these young guys, all the freshmen we mentioned, coming back.
Yeah, and I think that's what's going to hurt Iowa fans the most if they don't make the tournament, is that the bubble is not strong this year. That's what's going to hurt the most. There are not a lot of great teams on the bubble. And if you think to yourself, if they could have just won one or two more of those, losable games, or I guess turned into bad losses, some of them, especially Michigan, being last in the Big Ten, that's what's going to hurt the most. But I know the conversation about Fran and the men's basketball team, it's kind of a polarizing topic. I feel like there's kind of like two sides of the fence. Me personally, being a University of Georgia alum and seeing what it's like to have a bottom feeder basketball program for the majority of my life, it can be a lot worse than going to the tournament almost every single year, even if it's not making it as far as they should have. And, I would agree with the camp that Iowa should have at least made one Sweet 16. We think about all of the NBA players that they've had, but this is a very viable, nationally relevant program. And even to this point, you can call it a disappointing year, and they've had disappointing losses, but at the end of the day, Iowa's still in the conversation. So, that in itself, I think is something that, fans can be proud of, even if it isn't meeting the ultimate expectations. So, I think the Fran's going to kind of keep this thing going for however long he's going to be coaching. I think obviously there's a developmental piece to the program that is undeniable. And I think Tony Perkins was an example of that. You can go back in history and look at other great players who have developed under him as well. So I think this is a team that's going to continue to be, tournament quality, even in this expanded Big Ten. And, I'll be kind of watching what the program does from here.
Folks, that's Kennington Llyod Smith III, our buddy Kenny Smith, formerly Iowa Hawkeyes beat writer with the Des Moines Register and Hawk Central, USA Today, now covering for the Athletic, Alabama Athletics, primarily football. Kenny, thank you for the extra time. It is always great to catch up with you. Congratulations on all your success, and very much look forward to catching up with you in the future. My goodness, you have some insights like you're still here in Iowa, my friend. And you always promised me, you said, when I leave Iowa, Iowa will never leave me. And you have held true to that word. Great stuff today, Kenny. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you having me on. I'm going to continue to be a fan, and I'm really looking forward to what the football team does. I'll be watching spring practice very closely and reading work from, all of my reporter friends from across the state. And I feel like this is going to be one of the most anticipated spring practices in a while, obviously, with the new offense. So hopefully, they're able to right that ship, and Iowa can be relevant in this new Big Ten landscape.
Next Wednesday, March 20th, spring ball starts at Iowa with the final practice, open practice on April 20th. So that 1 month, to your point, is going to be a whirling dervish of activity, as it will throughout college football in the country. Kenny, thank you so much. We look forward to catching up with you soon.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. For Kenny Smith, I'm Dave O'Hara. We'll be back with more Hawkeye, and Mike Palm from Vegas, Circa in Vegas, back with more Hawkeye in just a few moments.
Who do you trust to produce the best yield? A seed company that's chasing technology, or a seed company that's writing a book on it? Mershman Seeds is a leader in technology. We're independent and family owned. Our sister company, MS Technologies, provides access to world-class traits and genetics. And our starting line seed treatment is second to none. Who can you trust with your yields? Mershman Seeds, your friend in the field.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. You see our buddy Mike Palm joining us. Mike, of course, VP of Operations at Circa Sports, also the D and the Golden Gate Hotel and Casinos, and all that in Vegas. Mike, a Dubuque, Iowa native, Eastern Iowa, of course, through and through. So we're going to talk to Mike a lot about the Hawkeyes today. And, of course, you can also see all of Mike's information at the bottom of the screen throughout this segment, along with mine, and throughout the show with Kenny Smith as well. But I wanted to mention that Mike also is a part of the Circa Iowa Sports app, or the Circa app for Iowa. And check that out. Of course, like also a casino in Chicagoland area, and a new one upcoming. So, Mike, a lot going on with you as always. So I greatly appreciate you taking time to join us today.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Yeah, we just launched in Nevada our latest outlet, our latest satellite sports book at the Silverton. For most that are familiar with Las Vegas, that's at the southern end, right off the I-15 southern end of the city. So the Southern Highlands area and the southwest side of town. Launched that on Monday. That was a former William Hill book, and converted their space, did a nice build out. And as you mentioned, then we're going to be launching in Kentucky, hopefully by the end of the month mobily, and then either sometime Q4 this year or Q1 next year with the brick and mortar book as well.
Never stops with you guys. I love it because the games never stop, Mike. So here we go. Got my black and gold on as usual today, or some derivation thereof. So you know what we're going to talk about, Mike. Let's talk wrestling. What's upcoming for this week for the Nationals in Kansas City, please, Mike?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, a disappointing Big Ten tournament for them. Our guys are working real hard right now at booking team odds for Nationals, championship. Top four, I believe, will also offer as well, and then certain weight classes that feature the Iowa wrestlers will also be up as well. But yeah, it was a disappointing for the fans and for the bettors as they did not fare as well as we had thought.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. And you talk about guys like Real Woods and some of the other names. If I start mentioning them, I'm going to leave some off. But as you nod along with me, it's something else. And not the banner year for the Hawks, but still finished fourth in the Big Ten. And Tom Brands obviously wants to do some things. A quick shout out to the Hawkeye women, Mike. And again, as you know, we talk wrestling in the state of Iowa. And you take action at the Circa Sports book on wrestling. But the Hawkeye women win by 6 points, and then the rest it was kind of a walk away. But we figured it would come down to North Central and the Hawkeye women, and Hawkeye women won their first national championship.
Yeah, hopefully they can continue the tradition now and start a long run at dynasty like Dan Gable built on the men's side.
Yeah, absolutely. Clarissa Shanahan picked by Tom Brands and the rest of the wrestling folk at the University of Iowa. So what a wonderful time it is for them. And that new wrestling facility, as I talked with Beth Getz, the athletic director, a couple of shows ago, they're getting ready to open that. She said, let's win a few national titles first, and then we'll open up the facility in April. So that appears to be the case. So, Mike, let's you and I talk a little bit about Bluter's Bunch and what a game it was on Sunday. Let's go back a little bit with you, and let's talk about their games at the Big Ten tourney. They win their first game, second game in a walk away. Ohio State gets knocked off and upset. Indiana gets upset and knocked off. So now it's Iowa and Nebraska. And, of course, in this part of the country, I'm sure you had a lot of action at that game because the Hawks split with Nebraska.
I could not believe that the game was 17 and a half at one point against Nebraska. I took it.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, I took 17. And with 2 minutes to go, I was saying, why didn't I take plus 640 on the money line? I mean, you knew this was going to be a chippy game, not to the extent of LSU, South Carolina, but we know the backstory. They blow the 17-point fourth quarter lead in Lincoln. Were they holding her out to set the record on Thursday night against Michigan? Bluter comes into the Nebraska press conference. She's upset about the music. She's upset about they didn't go first and get out of there. I mean, Nebraska knows all that too, right? That she busted into their press conference. And they made the championship. And I mean, I thought that spread should have been about 8 or 9 points. And to be 17 was ludicrous. So the key thing here, though, as far as the future bets on the Iowa women, and we've seen the market move, was beating Ohio State in the season finale, because I think that got them safely away from a 7 or 8 seed where they would have to be in a South Carolina regional. Now, with Stanford losing in the Pac-12 championship, Iowa should be the overall number 2, right? So overall 2 or 3, you wouldn't have to see South Carolina to the championship game. But I think that was a good thing. Now, also being the overall 2, they probably avoid USC, right? Yes. Because USC might have stolen that final number 1 from Stanford in that Pac-12 final, and you don't have to go against USC in your regional. Now, the thing is, Connecticut might have worked their way up to a 7, so you might have that 2-7, but who knows? We originally had the Iowa women plus 160 to make the Final Four. That's down to, I think, a pick 'em now. It was plus 125 heading into the women's tournament, and I bet it then off a different place, obviously. I bet it then at plus 130. I believe it's minus 105 or minus 110 now for them to make the Final Four. Still around 6-1 to win it all. At one point, it was about plus 750.
Quick question, though, for you, and you've mentioned this before. Any type of props or sides that we can take with Caitlin as far as points, that type of thing?
Yeah, I think we'll have point totals for her in each game. And I'm trying to get them to put up assists, too, because, I mean, to me, that's the untold story. She might end up finishing 4th all-time in assists in NCAA history, right? And if she stayed another year, she would have gotten both records. So I think that's just as as a key. And I think there'll be a lot of sharp people that would bet that line. So I've asked them to have over/under points and assists on each game in the tournament.
Folks, he is the man with the plan right there in Vegas, Northeast Iowa native, Dubuque native, Mike Palm. Thanks again, Mike, to you for joining us. Mike, of course, with Circa Sports in Vegas, the D, and also Golden Gate Hotel and Casino. All of Mike's information at the bottom of the screen, along with mine throughout this show and this segment. Again, Mike's the man with the plan, trying to get lines changed. I love that when you said, I'm going to talk to him about adding Caitlin assists. You keep up the good work, Mike, and we'll talk to you next week. Thanks so much, my friend.
Thank you, Dave.
Truly my pleasure. For Mike Palm, Kenny Smith, and to you, the viewers, my production partner, Michael Merrick. Happy birthday, Michael, by the way. And to you, the viewers, I'm Dave O'Hara with Hawkeye. That's all from us. Thanks to all of you.
And as always, thanks for staying tuned at the end of the program for these rolling credits to give our advertisers and sponsors the attention and credit they so richly deserve. And as always, to our aforementioned guests and to you, the viewers. That's all from us at Hawkeye. Thanks to all of you.